No voice. Can anybody hear? I cannot hear.
We cannot hear too.
Hear me?
Yeah, but
I know you don't want to hear me, but I just wondered if you could hear.
I can hear you now. I couldn't earlier.
Is that right?
Yeah, if you can go back to the first page, that would be great. I did not hear the first one. Thank you.
I think, yeah, this is the actual form, so.
Okay, good.
Just
Thank
trying to
you.
Get it in place. I think. I saw her on there a minute ago. Are you sharing your sound, Cindy?
Still no sound.
Harry, Cindy in here?
I saw Cindy on here a minute ago, but I don't see her now. Plus her shared screen has dropped, so I'm not sure what is going on her end.
Here.
There she is.
Oh my goodness, can you hear me too?
I can hear you, yes.
Now I can hear you.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yay.
That was
You're
Jasmine.
on.
That was all Jasmine. She came in and fixed it for me. She doesn't like when I scream. Okay. Okay, hold on, let's go back to screen sharing. What happened to my what happened to my screen sharing thing? Maybe if I get rid of this. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay. Ah,
Okay.
I'm having that kind of day, you know. I locked my keys in my car again. Okay. So this is the for only brand new document. This is the only one that from scratch is all new. And it is just an advisory to a buyer that about how hard it is to get insurance and that you should start right away. It's based on the market we're in right this minute. And it's going to come out, you don't have to worry about it. It's going to come out with the RPA, so it'll just be there, and it'll be another document that makes the RPA even longer. Because it's not long enough just yet. Okay. We're gonna skip the short sale stuff because it's complicated and we don't really do enough short sales to it just goes on and on. Okay. For your protection, get a home inspection. They revised the entire form. Notice how it's all red? It's all the exact same form in just different words. Nothing changed, no policies changed, no rules changed. It's the same thing in a different kind of format. So there's nothing new on here, nothing that you need to know other than you might see that the words look different. Okay, residential listing agreement. Okay, and I'm going to help with this part so that you can't read because I have it here. Okay, on the listing agreement, little tiny changes, and it's the same changes that go on all the listing agreement. It's the same changes that go on all the different listing agreements. So they made it to all of them. Residential lease or purchase. Oh my goodness. It's a very little change, which is probably why I find it. Anyway, okay, so they changed, yay, they changed the word. I don't know what it used to be, but now it's called the listing period. I'm not sure what it used to be called, but they changed that. And then, or maybe I don't know, maybe they've added a parentheses or something. It looks like they did a minor change. And then they added this part down here about the maximum term that you can have for a listing agreement. That's going to be on the listing agreement. And if you did my class on new laws, as I came around, there was a new law this year where you can't have a listing agreement more than 24 months. And you can only renew, and that's an exclusive. You can have other kinds. And this is only residential, not commercial. And you can only renew any exclusive residential listing agreement for 12 months. And it has to be signed by the seller at the time of renewal. You can't have them sign it early. Like right now, sign me a 24-month and also sign the renewal right now. I mean, if you post date it and you're just cheating everybody, not much we can do, but you're not allowed to do that. You have to wait till the 24 months is over and then see if they want to re-up for another 12 and have them re-sign then. So, I mean, that's it. That's the only change to the listing agreement is just adding that information that it can only be. And for those of you who took the class before, Carr gave a class on the new laws, but it wasn't until I'd already given half of mine. So for those of you that were in my first half, I have one thing I need to correct, and that is on residential leases. The new law, and again, we have the small landlord exemption, but the new law says you can only have 1 month's security deposit, and that includes pet deposits. Someone asked me and I thought I didn't. That includes everything, 1 month's deposit period, unless you're considered a small landlord. So then you don't have any new restrictions. So
Cindy, when does it start?
in January 1st.
Okay, thank you.
On the leased deposit, is that equal or can't exceed 1 month's rent, or is it?
Correct. It can be no more than 1 month's rent period. And I don't, if you didn't do my class, there is a small landlord exception. If you have a landlord who has no fewer than 2 properties and no fewer than 4 units in those 2 properties together, they're exempt and they can still get 2 months up front and 1 month for furnished.
Thank you.
Cindy, so when you say small landlord means the owner.
Right.
owns
The
the
owner
property
only
no more
owns
than-
two-
no
right,
more than-
only owns two properties with no more than 4 units total.
So they can have a 1 month plus the pet deposit.
Right.
Got it.
Okay. Revised property management forms. We don't really do property management, but we do residential month-to-month rental agreements quite a bit. Okay. The residential lease, let me see if I can find my higher notes. You're on 3, that one that starts with 3B. I was trying to put these in order and then I got mad and I messed them all up. Okay. Contract. Okay. So I think this is a whole new question, right? Periodic pest control, whether the premises is covered by a contract for periodic pest control. If yes, who's going to pay for it? As you recall, this RPO here that you're seeing on the screen, that's instead of landlord, that's the real property owner. That's what they use in Carr's trying to change all its documents, so none of them use the word landlord. They all use a real property owner, RPO. Okay, again, not a lot of big changes. Okay, also on the lease. Property manager. Okay. This is 29C, right? Okay. The liability policy shall name. Okay, so they're talking about tenant, if you're requiring tenant to obtain a liability insurance policy. And it's telling them that it has to, I think a lot of this was already there, but it just wasn't said as nicely. The liability policy name shall name housing provider and the property manager as an additional insured. And I wasn't sure about this, but I learned the difference between an additional insured and having an additional interest in a property. Okay. So an additional insured literally means that you can make a claim against the property. Okay, so if you drive for work and you put down your employer as an additional insured, they could literally make you got into an accident, they could make a claim on the policy for whatever it is they could make a claim on for. Additional interest is really someone who gets notice. someone who gets information, someone who we're gonna keep informed. So, so and they require they require it to be, additionally insured, but some places I apparently won't do that, so they'll take an additional interest. And that's basically what they're saying. So it has to name them and they have to have one of those two things. They have to be one of those two things.
Cindy, I'm sorry, what document is this?
This is part of the residential lease. That's why we're talking about tenant obtaining liability insurance in the lease. Okay. Okay, another addition to the lease. These are again not major additions. This is just a what do you call those things? Disclosures? Just a disclosure that they're adding that tells everyone that that basically housing provider and tenant are advised that city, county, or other local requirements, including those imposed by a regulatory body such as a rent stabilization board, may apply. So they're telling you that we really don't have anything in the lease for your specific jurisdiction. It's a California lease. And if your jurisdiction may have other things that have to be in here or that are required. And that's all they're saying is that we can't put every local jurisdiction's information in our lease.
Hi, Cindy.
Yes.
This Gloria, I just wanna go back to that when the landlord is asking for an insurance. What was important about that again?
Oh, for the liability insurance? I
Yeah.
think the only thing that different from tenancy, I think the only thing that really changed was if the landlord wants the tenant to have liability insurance, and it's really just normally they have tenant rental insurance, right? Tenants, whatever it's called, rental policy, tenant policy. But if they want them to take out some sort of liability insurance in case they do something wrong that causes liability, okay, you have to name both the manager and the housing provider on the policy.
Right, yeah, okay.
And they're just telling them that. I don't know how often that gets checked, but they're telling them that if this is checked and you have to do this policy, then this is what is part of the
Okay,
policy.
thank you. Okay.
Okay, we did that one. Okay. I just like this one. Can I make this bigger even? Maybe a little. I like this one because this is also from the new laws class. If you came to the new laws class, you heard that the legislature passed a law that used to say that once you've got all these screening costs, you paid all these fees, the landlord had to send you your receipt by personal delivery or mail. And landlord said, real property owners said, that's crazy. Why can't we email it? So they changed the law, and in the new laws, there was a new law that said now they can email it. And here it is in the form. So it shows it turns out in the form they have to in the form to match the law.
Email. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to talk much about this because it's really tiny and you can't read it, but then this is the tenant estoppel certificate. Again, I don't think they changed it. They just redid the format so that it's easier to use. But it's not, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything new or different in here. That's all they've done is redone the format. Okay. Seller property questionnaire. They added a question for ADUs. Okay, it's, the times are changing. Whenever there's a structure on the property, now you have to tell, is there an ADU? And if yes, that you have to answer questions about the ADU and the government, if there's a governance agreement and anything else. So that's new in the seller property questionnaire. Also new. I like the way they did this where they only put in the paragraphs they changed. Makes it so much easier.
Government approval, what does that mean? If there's a government approval?
Oh, I think they're meaning like the city, like if city approval is needed. Permit approval. They're talking about, your local, right? Is the ADU received a permit or other government approval? Yeah, you would hope that it was approved by our city, that I did it right. Yes.
Okay.
And it would need a permit too, really.
So these start in January?
Yes, these should come in January.
So let's say we take a listing this week.
Nothing that's done before January has to be changed.
Okay. Thanks.
But I would tell you that if like you do have an ADU, you might want to look at this and say, hey, I should disclose that, you know, whatever the questions are, because somebody found these to be material. And so even if it's before, if you have something to say about them, you should probably, you know, say them. We don't have that much time though. They're coming into effect. Oh, I'm sorry. The forms are coming into effect the week of the 18th, next week,
Yeah,
probably Tuesday.
Next week, yeah.
Next week, and they say they always release them on Tuesday, but they don't want to promise it. I don't know.
But it's not effective until January.
The law is not effective, right?
So if we take a listing,
If let's just say you did a lease and you could still take the 2 months rent and you don't have to give them back, right? And whatever you do before the law, they're not, unless they tell you specifically, which none of these are, you don't have to go back and fix stuff that's already done.
But however, Cindy, let's say we take the listing now, but then the lease contract sign in after January 1st, 24, then we should go by the new.
Right, well, it
contract.
goes by when you're filling out this form, not just when the listing is, right? Right. Sellers.
As of the 18th, like Cindy was saying a minute ago, as of the 18th, this is going to be the only
Right.
forms that are available.
Right,
So
you're not
you
gonna-
won't have the old forms to go back on. So
Right, you're not going to be able to find them at all.
exactly.
Okay, seller purchase of replacement property. Oh, gosh, can I just find this? Because I can't read it and I don't remember what it says, but I have it on my desk. Sorry. Oh, here we go. Huh. So what this does, oh, I guess it's over here. Buyer, okay, so this is crazy. So seller has a contingency to find replacement property. Seller removes contingency to find replacement property, but that's not good enough for buyer. Buyer needs to know that the seller actually has somewhere to go and will leave. It's not enough that they don't have a contingency. They need to be reassured that I'm removing my contingency, so that this basically requires seller to give the buyer proof of where they're going. And this was a big controversial issue when I did this in the car class, because sellers don't give their addresses out to buyers. It's not a normal policy where the buyer knows where the seller went, right? And so if they have to show them proof that they have a place to go, and I believe that this includes sending like certain documents, people were up in arms. Well, sellers aren't going to do that. They're not going to give the buyer their new address. So I don't know what's going to happen with this, and I don't think there's going to be any change since they taught the class on it. But people are very upset about this, about the fact that you're going to have to you have to give them either a copy of the contract for purchase replacement property, yeah, an escrow for the purchase of a signed lease, or you can give them a copy of a signed lease signed lease or agreement. So gosh, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but people are going to leave it blank, and I assume, and it's probably
What
not.
brought that up? Why did they put that in there?
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know.
'Cause I mean, that could make a buyer not want to use a realtor to sell their home. You know, they would probably rather sell it themselves, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's only if you have finding replacement property. Yeah, I don't know. I find it to be like, isn't it enough I remove my contingency? We don't make all sellers show where they're going to go if they don't have this.
Right, exactly. It's strange.
It doesn't make sense. I agree. Neither did when I did the car call. I'm telling you, there was a lot of yelling about that.
I have
Okay,
a
thank you.
question. I have a question, Cindy. What if they're going to go live back at a parent's house or something like that?
I mean, listen, you could say that. I mean, you know, gee, I'm going to live with my parents. Here's a letter.
What
from
proof would you do? Just a signed document, so and so moving
Yeah,
into
I would maybe a letter from the parents saying yes, that we're allowing them to move in with us, or they're moving in with us. Yeah.
Okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
there's only so much you can do. Obviously, they can't prevent you from moving somewhere that doesn't have one of these two pieces of paper.
Cindy, I have a question then on
Moving
that.
my car. What do you want from me, buddy? Yeah.
I have a question on that. So in the contract, it states that upon close of escrow, the seller has to vacate the property.
Yeah, is that not enough?
Wouldn't that just contradict that? And what kind of liability are we gonna be in if they leave it blank?
I don't think it's gonna be, you know, there's a lot of things people leave blank, and the transaction, and sometimes it's important and we end up having to go back and fix them because they shouldn't have been blank. We had to have an answer. And some things just really don't affect this transaction and nobody ever realizes they're, I don't know. Again, we don't know how it's gonna come out. We only know that every realtor on my call and anyone who I tell this to is like, no way is the seller gonna start giving the buyer their new address. It's just not gonna happen. I mean, right?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, guess what? I'm moving out of state, you know, I'm moving in with my brother in Maryland. Here's his address. Knock
Yeah.
yourself out.
Maybe they'll have a document that they can just share with escrow that shows that they
Yeah,
have.
or again, like the QS, escrow has, you know, the
Right,
information
the
on
QS,
file.
exactly.
And what if the seller is a celebrity or something? They
Well,
don't
oh,
want
also-
anybody.
Also, when they remove all contingencies,
Well,
it
okay.
probably can be included in this.
This
if
is
it's a
not, okay,
contingency.
let's start here. This is not a law. Okay, this is not a new law. This is something that CAR decided to put in. There's a lot of stuff in the RPA that are laws that have to be followed that CAR can't change. No one can change. You can't even you can't waive them. You know, there's a lot of stuff in here you can't waive. But then there's a bunch of stuff in here that CAR puts in because it makes the transaction go more smooth, right? Like the SPQ. There's no law that says there's such a thing as an SPQ, but CAR finds that these are the material issues, and to help the parties, we're going to make a list of material issues and have you fill them out so that we get the information we need. But it's not, you could counter out the SPQ. Nobody tells you have to do it. So you could technically, if there's a seller purchase of replacement property and you're the buyer and you're the seller, you could counter out, you could say, or you could cross it out. You could do whatever you want, right? Because it's not required by law. It's only required by this contract. And so you could take it out of the contract. I mean, again, you know, if you did that for everything that you felt like this about, it would probably have the longest counteroffers ever or whatever, or extra forms. But you can say, hey, seller is not to give buyer, you know, seller has finding replacement property contingency and will not give buyer proof of purchase. Period.
Is it in red though, or is that just for
Well, the red part, I'm pretty sure, is just to show you the changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Although CAR's funny, if you look at their forms, there's some stuff that's all caps and bolded, and some stuff that's bolded but not all caps, and you're trying to figure out, is this the order you should read in, the important stuff first? I gets me confused with all their boldings. Okay, so that's that one, and added 2 grounds to cancel based on the above. Okay, so they added 2 grounds of cancellation. Yeah, this is the part in the class that I missed. They added 2 grounds of cancellation after first giving seller a notice of seller to perform. If seller fails to give proof of replacement as specified. So they took this up here in 1A and put it down here and said, if you don't do it, then we can give you a notice to perform. Again, does the buyer want out of the contract or the buyer want the property? I mean, if you're looking to get out of the contract. Okay, and the other one is if seller gives notice. I think there's a typo here. It says if seller gives notice to seller of either property's cancellation of the agreement for replacement property. I think seller has to give notice to buyer. I think that's probably a typo. Which hopefully somebody will pick up before they get too far. Oh yeah, I think does that already look like it says buyer? Anyway, so cancellation of the agreement for replacement of either party's cancellation of the agreement.
I think that's already been caught, Cindy. This is a draft and. maybe
Yeah, okay,
something that
I haven't
comes out.
opened it yet.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
already been tagged.
Okay, so those are the changes to the seller purchase of replacement property. Okay, the TOP. So they made a few changes to the TOP. They added this one right here, 1B3. Right, because rent control jurisdictions, again, because they can't put in every local rent control jurisdiction information. So they may have their own rules, so this is a warning that that you have to look in the jurisdiction you're in, right? When the property becomes vacant, they have different rules in different jurisdictions with what you can do. And so they're letting people know that, I think. It doesn't really look like what it says, does it? Okay, let me do this again. Oh, whoa. I'm not, which part is this? I'm not sure which part, but that's not relevant. Whoa. This, my notes say that if the property is going to be delivered vacant, seller has to identify how seller got the tenants to leave. So the buyer now has a right to know, and I'm not sure which part of this it is. Oh, I think it's this part up here. So basically, I was able, right. They have a right to know if there's going to be a possible lawsuit. Did you pay them money and they left? Did you change the locks while they were at work one day? You know, what did you do to get them out? How likely are we that they're going to come back and, burn the place down or do something else? Is basically what you want to know. So that is now something that per the form, again, not per the law, but per the form, that you have to be able to identify. And then they added a section, if the buyer's already a tenant, that you fill out this section. So that's all new if you're selling it to a tenant. Identify added to specifically willing to identify use of security deposits, if any. Oh, okay. This is just another disclosure on security deposits and what happens to happen, what has to happen with them. So this is the tenant, the TOP. If you're not using the TOP, you probably should be using it, especially if you're a landlord and you have a tenant in the property that's going to leave by the end of the lease. By using the TOP, it says that if by some chance you can't get your tenant to leave, you're not going to be liable. You're just going to be, the buyer can cancel and get their deposit back, but nothing else. Can't sue you for having to live in an apartment for another 3 months while you get the tenant out. So you should really be looking at this form and seeing if it works for you.
So we should put it in with a listing agreement?
No, it goes in with the purchase agreement.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Oh, actually, you could probably get it. You probably could get it filled out ahead so that, well, but again, you're going to get the agreement and send something back. Either at any point you can fill it out. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's all the forms that are of import. So there's 3. This is what we did. We did the 3 short-term rental forms. There are, just so you know, there are 6 business listing sales forms for business sales of businesses, and we're doing more and more of those. These are all redone. So they should be way better and hopefully, matching what Airforms has. And then there are 3 new agreements for short-term rentals, meaning like Airbnb type rentals under 29 days. And so there's new documents for then for the longer ones, 31 to 90, and the short-term.
Cindy, then who for these short-term rental, who is it for?
Like if you have a tenant, if you have a landlord, I don't even know if they use agents, but if you have a landlord who wants to rent their property to someone who's coming to California for 2 weeks, and it's just for 2 weeks, it's different rules.
Oh,
and some cities don't allow short-term rentals, so you have to know if your city allows short-term rentals as well. Okay, let's see. Okay, so 9. 9 forms were updated without a revision date, so that means they took it out. I don't know why. 25 other forms were reviewed and given a new date because of the 4-year rule, but they didn't need to be revised. So when you see numbers, I mean, I saw some big numbers of the 80 forms revised. Well, not really. Very few revisions. That's it. Let me figure out how to stop sharing. Okay, so that's it. Hardly anything, right? This was a mild one. But until you know, you don't know that. Terry, I didn't hear that. What was that?
I think that cleaned it up. And it's not it's not a panic thing. They went through, they were looking at the the forms in general and saw that many of them, their revision dates were like 2014. And here we are 10 years later. It looks like we haven't done anything with the form. And so some of them were just reread. And like Cindy said, if it had the right information in it, they just put a new revision date on it. They said, well, it's still good, so let's just put a new revision date. And I think that they caught up. Last I heard, they had Neil Caitlin, one of the attorneys, said that they had caught up to 2019. So anything after 2019, they still haven't maybe reviewed and things.
This
So they're
4-year
getting
period is
there.
going to be a big one. Yeah.
Yep.
Every 4 years. I know.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I don't like looking at one that hasn't been revised in a long time because I don't know if things changed and I trust them to know.
Yep. I agree with that 100%. I can't tell you how many times you look at them and somebody's got it in a download library instead of pulling it off the website.
Okay, so if you have any questions, if you see anything weird in forms that you think looks new, you can ask me and I'll be able to tell you, no, that's been there for a couple of years now. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, you are all up to date. Yay, we have forms, we have laws, we are good. If anyone missed the new laws class and wants to have a quick tutorial, I'm available.
Thank you, Cindy.